This is a panel all about 2000 AD, the magazine, and the Dredd universe. Our guest of honour, Michael Carroll, celebrates many years working under Tharg, becoming one of Dredd's wonderful writers, one of most Dredd's important writers. Mike is joined by his fellow curators and servants of the 2000 AD editor, Tharg the Mighty, to discuss the last couple of years of the Megacity's creations, the diversification of the parent company Rebellion, and the growth into other media, and how these will support the future of great comics. So first of all, I will ask Mike, our wonderful guest of honour, to introduce himself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Michael Carroll. I currently write Judge Dredd and Proteus Vex and a couple of other things for 2000 AD. I've been doing so for many years. The first one came out in 2007, but I've been a reader since 1977, since the very first issue. So 2000 AD is not only in my blood, but the ink is on my fingers.
We're also drawn, Mike is also, as well as being a guest of honour, has been a previous chair of Octagon, and is the only person who's been to every single convention so far.
No, not just me. Leonie has too, and Rory Lennon has. So there. Oh, yeah. But if Rory's not online for this, then we're winning, you know.
3 of you so far. We're also joined by Maura McHugh, who is also a previous chair of Octagon and a previous guest of honour. So Maura, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Maura McHugh. I'm a writer living in the west of Ireland. I write horror, science fiction, fantasy across media. And in relation to 2000 AD, I've written Judge Anderson. I've also written for Rebellion. I've also written for their Smash special, the Misty special. And I'm also doing novellas for Rebellion as well, which are set within the Dreadverse, shall we say.
And we're also joined by the wonderful PJ Holden, artist extraordinaire.
Hello.
PJ, do you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm PJ Holden. I've never chaired Octagon, nor have I been a guest of honour.
You have been a guest, though. We have pictures.
I have been a guest, though, and I'm a guest now, so that's fine. That's fine. It won't make me sad. It's okay. I'm a comic artist, best known for doing stuff on Dredd. I've been drawing Dredd for about 20 years somehow, despite these incredible youthful looks. It's been started when I was about 4. I've been drawing Judge Dredd and Rogue Trooper and a whole bunch of things. I've done a lot of Dredd with Mike as well. So yeah, I've drawn, and I'm in Belfast, which is the COVID capital of Ireland, from the sounds of things.
You must be so proud.
Well, Mike, will anything to not talk about the Troubles anymore? Or the Titanic.
Oh, the Troubles! God, yeah, that was amazing.
So, my first question is about Rebellion acquired 2000 AD and all of its sundry titles and stuff back in 2002. So, yeah, but that's what my notes say.
It was around about then, yeah.
In fact.
Sorry, yeah. So, Mike, what did you think when you heard that Rebellion were buying 2000 AD?
I was delighted because I was a fan of Rebellion from the games. I loved the games, and I knew Jason and Chris Kingsley's names from the games development world. I used to be a programmer and stuff like that. So when I heard that they were involved, I was going, well, this is amazing, because these guys are fans, and that meant, to my mind, it meant that they weren't just money men trying to make a quick buck. They would respect the property, and they would allow it to develop at its own speed, its own way, its own directions. And I was right, thankfully. Now, I'm not taking credit for it. I just happen to be right. But they've done an amazing job, because they have allowed 2000 AD to grow, and they haven't tried to exploit the heck out of it. I think everybody thought that would happen. That within a few years there'd be 2000 AD games based on every character and that kind of thing. And they haven't done that. They've been very good about being respectful to the property, and tremendous job. And the comic is better now than it has been in a very long time. And not, again, just because we're all involved in it, but because it's really found its audience. There was, certainly towards the end of the 90s, there was time there when, even when they were putting out the really good work, people just weren't able to get into it. They were maybe where they couldn't find it, they weren't aware it existed. I don't know. There was a spate before Rebellion when I think it was Egmont owned the comic, and they did some very dodgy advertising that just wasn't appropriate, and advertising like with pictures of bimbo type girls and the caption being 2000 AD girls just don't get it. This kind of thing. Yeah, I know.
I never saw that.
Oh well, I'll send you the links.
I do recall seeing that and being very cross because I was a girl who went from Bunty and Judy, then on to Misty and kind of those kind of comics, and then into 2000 AD. Yeah. Because it was a cover with Durham Red that really sparked my interest and got me involved way back when.
Can I say to you, I just want to, quite rightly, any woman who saw that advertising, and if they were a 2000 AD or comic fan, would have been affronted by it. As a bloke, I was affronted by it. I thought it was terrible. It was just an absolute total misjudgment of what the comic was. Yep. And it really annoyed me. So I don't want to do hashtag all men or anything like that. Would be too much. But I do want to say it was just, I think it was annoying to the readership in general, because it just got the comic completely wrong. Although there were probably a couple of artists in there that would have quite aimed at that sort of market anyway. There was a tendency for some of them to go a bit kind of boobylicious.
It's probably because of Anderson's psychic powers, but it's like her zip constantly gets pulled downwards.
Never keep that costume on.
I hate that so much.
It's probably the vibrations of her mind or something. That thing is the thing that really irritates me, because until I see Joe Dredd's zip all the way down to the middle of his chest, I don't want to see it happening on Anderson or Hershey or anyone else.
I found some of the ads. Do you want to see them?
Oh, Jesus, no.
These are all photo buckets. I don't know if you can see that.
No.
Why can't you have more nice characters and happy endings? It says, women just don't get it, 2000 AD. And then there's another one, you don't want to see this. Oh, okay, you do.
Yeah, there were some that were just, it was very much the boring feminists don't get 2000 AD.
I would say as well, the editorial didn't like those adverts either.
No, they hated them, yeah.
Very, very
yeah.
So it was just, generally 2000 AD was mismanaged prior to the Kingsleys.
Yeah. But when the work that's been done now in the past couple of decades, since the Kings came on board, has been sterling. It's been incredible work, I think, and very wise decisions to bring new creators like us on board. But apart from that,
that's enough. There's enough new creators now.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, I know. And actually, also we put traps down.
Has come down.
And we put poisoned traps down. So anybody else coming up, I'm sorry, you missed your chance, and it's not our fault you're not older. So
quota for Irish people is full now, so there's no.
Maura, did you read 2000 AD growing up?
Oh yeah. I've actually boringly talked about this lots of times, because again, pre-internet in Ireland, we got all the British comics, and I lived in a smaller town, so I didn't live in like Dublin, where maybe you could get other comics. And when they did come in, it was very erratic, so you couldn't keep up with the story. But 2000 AD came in every week, and I loved it. And I do remember we had that thing, where you buy the annuals at Christmas. And my mother used to give me the money, and I would go down to the shop, and for my brothers, I would buy them the 2000 AD annuals, so I could read them. So stuff like that. I mean, but yeah, I was. I have said, like, I have the original collected graphic novels of Anderson, and when she arrived, literally my heart exploded with excitement. Because she really was the first woman to sort of come into the comic, and she was badass. And what I loved about her was not only was she had the sense of humor thing and the psychic powers. That was all my bag, because I was a massive horror fan, and science fiction and everything. But Anderson's stories always veered into horror, dimension jumping, monsters, demons, all that kind of stuff. I loved it. But so I just really loved her. She was like an icon of mine when I was growing up there with maybe Ellen Ripley.
Yeah. Yeah, Anderson was great because she was the first female character who could carry a series on her own, because prior to her there had been Death Planet with Lorna Varn, but she had to keep getting rescued by the male protagonist. And other than that, well, there was Old One-Eye, who was a Tyrannosaur, so it doesn't really count.
Yeah.
But 2000 AD was, like all comics were in those days, it was gender specific. It was marketed for boys. And occasionally there would be letters from boys saying that my sister reads my comics, what can I do? And Tharg is going, get over it, a letter, but I'm sure I was guilty of it too when I was a kid. I thought science fiction was for boys because my sisters didn't really read it, except of course they did, because my older sister, Martina, read my comics. And I read her comics, and it was conditioning that we were led to believe that was the way things should be. Anderson was a great character, but she should have been in the comic from the get-go. It would have been fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing for me, is that I sort of skipped out in this thought, was that in the story, and that's actually one thing that I did like that was mostly present in 2000 AD from the beginning. Judges were judges. Their gender wasn't actually an issue. They were like, so Anderson did her job, and nobody, very occasionally, some of the other judges might make a remark in the stories, but overall, it was assumed you were a judge and you could do your job. And they weren't questioned based on their gender. They might be questioned because their size, who were all considered nuts, but and I really responded to that very well. I mean, she took her job very seriously. And everyone respected her because she did her job well. And that really hit home to me when I was reading the comic. Now, sometimes the artist might draw her certain ways, but I mean, a lot of that went over my head, actually. I totally didn't see any of that stuff.
I read all the older novels before Rebellion came out, and I always remember the one where Judge Dredd takes over, and it's very weird to see, what is an oppressive fascist regime in the megacities get even harder and tougher. And it was...
Hang on, are you suggesting that a devastating event would make any semi-fascist regime get more fascist? Because that sounds extraordinarily hard to believe.
But Judge Anderson was the person running the underground in that. And her name, Cassandra, was then a name of rebellion, quietly said. And you get citizens then naming their children secretly after her.
Yeah.
And that for me was the thing that, really hooked me on reading Judge Anderson, and that the way that she connected with people in a different way and a different audience.
Yeah.
It was amazing. PJ, what was your first run-ins with 2000 AD, and when did you aspire to be an artist with it?
I honestly can't. I will tell people it's usually Prug 1 or something. But I can't really remember because I was reading it from a very early age. But like Maura, it was. It didn't matter to me that they were boys comics or girls comics. Just I liked comics. There always felt like there was a difference in the tone of them. The girls comics tended to be more sort of emotionally deep. Well, not emotionally deep, but they dealt with more emotional stuff, or more sort of they more less punching and more kind of thinking, and more which seemed to be the only real difference. They were both like, I responded really well to the artwork on all comics, and so it's hard for me to say what was the very first Dredd or 2000 AD I really remember, because it's always been there. It's never, I can't really remember a time when it wasn't there. So I assume but I was about 7 or 8 or something at that time. So, but really kind of sitting there, every notebook I've ever had, every piece of paper I've ever had a pen put in front of, I draw Dredd on it. It comes out like a sketch with like a noodle when you're not thinking. So it's always been part of my DNA, So there's no good answer there.
So my next question for all three of you is, how did it feel when you got a call or email from Tharg to say, yes, this, whatever you've submitted, we want it, you're now going to be, and then seeing your work in print for the first time?
For me, the first thing was when I'd already been doing stuff with Gordon Rennie for small press stuff, so that was kind of exciting because he was working on 2000 AD and we became kind of friends. And then in 2001 or something, I think. So this is the time scale for when Rebellion bought 2000 AD is a little more complex than 1 year, I think. So I think 2000 or 2001 was whenever the first Judge Dredd convention was run, and I think they either owned it at that point or they were in negotiations for it. There was definitely something about it at that point where they were that there was a handover beginning. Sort of Andy Diggle's reign was kind of coming to an end. But I went to a convention, the first 2000 AD convention, proper as far as I'm aware, and showed my artwork to Andy, who at that point I think was halfway out the door anyway, and just looked at it and went, yeah, I'll give you. I've seen your work online. I'll give you some work. And I was like, I had a 4-day face of beaming. I was just beaming for 4 solid days. My cheeks were sore. Like I literally sore cheeks from smiling. But that wasn't that wasn't work. That was, I'll give you some work. That wasn't even, at that point, if I'd been hit by a car, I'd have gone, I'd have gone to heaven, gone, yeah, everything was great. I had a brilliant time. It was fantastic. I mean, give you a mark. I think I don't know if this is probably less true as you get older, but more true when you're younger. You get your first gig and you're super excited by it, and then you do your first gig, and then after you've finished it, you only think to say, "Am I getting paid for this? How much am I getting paid?" Because I emailed Andy, I think after I'd done it, after I'd been commissioned, and after I'd accepted the commission, to say, "What's the page rate?" So, I mean, I'd have done it for free, and I did because I drew it 5 times, the same strip 4 or 5 times. I sent him. I actually phoned Gordon after Andy said he'd give me some work. I said, "Oh, Andy's going to give me some work." He says, "Well, I've just got a Dredd I've handed in, so I'll get him to give you that," which was why Dredd was the first thing I did. And that was super exciting. But, you have dips and highs and lows, and you think this is the end. This is it. I've made it now. I'm a full-fledged 2000 AD artist. I'm on my way, guys. Don't And then your next year you get no work, and then another year you get lows, and then another year no work. So it just goes up and down, ebbs and flows. So that's the kind of the story I've told millions of times. So it is super exciting. And then the first time you see your work on a shelf and you see it colored and you're kind of going, is that, wow, that's mine. I did that. I mean, now I'm totally blasé about it. Like 4 comps, if a bunch of comps are, I'm going shove them in the corner with the rest. Hell, I'm just buried under complimentary copies. Who cares? Did it come out okay? Oh, but the getting to do the work is fun now. I mean, it's more fun now to sit and draw the stuff than it is to see it in print and to get, but and also getting paid. Those are the big spikes of dopamine.
What about you, Maura?
Yeah, I've said before, sorry, it's kind of like PJ, people ask you this question, so now I'm concerned people find it boring. But I was literally on my couch when I got the email, and I very loud curse word, which I can't repeat here, came out of my mouth from excitement. I mean, it's funny too. I noticed that I kind of had written comics before, and I had done one with Kim Newman for Dark Horse, and which was in the Mike Mignola universe. So it's like, I'd done comics, but the reaction when when it was announced that I was doing 2000 AD was tremendous. Like friends of mine, and I think this comes back to like PJ and Mike and all of us, is that 2000 AD in Ireland and the UK has a cachet that very few other comics have. It's like it's because it's like sort of, it's an institution. It's been around so long. So people who hadn't talked to me on Facebook in forever were like totally blown away by this fact, because they remembered buying this comic as a kid. And in the small town I grew up with, there was a couple of people saying, "I can't believe I know someone who writes for 2000 AD." So there was that kind of level of reaction to it. That was later on. But yeah, and then writing it and want to make sure you do a good job. And I only had a few pages. So, and it's one of the biggest problems is getting the story in. And your artist is really super important with that. And And then after that, then, you know, immediately I just pitched more work to Tharg and i.e. Matt, sorry. I think we all have a tendency to call Matt Tharg. And then it went on from there. So yeah, but I'm not as blasé as PJ, and it's different for PJ because PJ's drawing, right? So for me, like when I get the art, and often with 2000 AD, sometimes you don't see the art until it's out, but a lot of the times, if I can, I love if the artist will contact me and, you know, just contact me and send me the art as it comes in. And that, I'm lucky, that does happen sometimes. And every time, PJ, I get art into my inbox, I am super excited. I
am always excited when I'm commissioned and I get sent a script, always. But by the time I've finished the artwork, I've spent maybe a month on it. I don't want to see it again.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, Matt Smith is the longest serving continuous Tharg.
Yes.
Currently.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing.
Easily. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I
considering that there's been over 2,000 progs so far.
Yeah.
You know, because not only was 2000 AD in mostly every small newsagent, it was in my local newsagents growing up. And when I was staying over my grandmother's house, a small country town, it was in that newsagents as well. So there's been over 2,000 of them. And you have them all. So how did it feel when you got the first copy with your name in it?
I have one copy of each. I don't necessarily have them all. No, I do have I do have a full set at the moment. But no, the first for me, I don't think I told anyone that I got a script accepted, apart from Leonie. Obviously, that was for one of my future shocks, and I think I might have mentioned it to Rich McClements, but other than that, I don't think I told many people. So I was quite active on the 2000 AD message board at the time. And so when the issue came in, people were going, "Oh my God, there's a time twister story in here," which was the first one I'd been printed in years. And it's written by Michael Carroll, and people were like very complimentary about it, which was great. But when the word actually came in from Matt, the Mighty Tharg said to me, "Hey. Oh, Michael, we really love your story, and we want you to write for our comic. Also, you are the best, and here is all of the money." And then
I didn't even see Mike's lips move.
That's the thing about COVID-19 with all the masks. It really is a ventriloquist paradise, isn't it? So Tharg says, "You are the very best, and write this story for us, and we will basically make you a superstar." And that's going to happen any day now. But I'd been pitching a few ideas back and forth, and I've told the story again 1,000 times. But one of my ideas was and still am a judge on an annual short story competition. And I said, what if we got all the really corny, cliched ideas and put them into one story? And like for example, a story about JFK or Marilyn Monroe and robots that turn on the masters. Now, eventually I came up with a story that used a bunch of these standard ideas into one. And basically, it's a story set in the Second World War, and Hitler's scientists have invented the time machine, and he's going to go back in time and warn his younger self not to fight on the Eastern Front as well as the Western Front, and therefore not split his resources. But he accidentally ends up, himself and his new wife, Eva Braun, get sent way back in time to the dawn of history, and they realize that they are the first man and the first woman. They are Adolf and Eva. And it's corny as anything, but it's old. And Matt said, the original idea, Matt said, I like the idea, but this bit doesn't work and that bit doesn't work. And instead of me going, oh, I said, well, what if I change it? And he said, yes. And I changed it, and it was success. And the story is called, PJ remembers what the story is called, don't you, PJ?
It's called Back to the Fuhrer.
That's correct.
I think it's a gem of a thing. So one of the things I love about 2000 AD is especially in future shocks and the time twisters and stuff, is you can create these perfect little gems, these just little perfect little parcels of like clockwork things that are so intricate and so perfect, and they're little diamonds, they're beautiful, and then they're fish wrapping the next week. But that's That's just the way it goes. That's the way the fickle hand of Tharg's famous finger moves on.
We've had a question come in from those watching on Twitch, and the question is there ever a moment that you feel that what you're writing and creating for an existing universe or publication, that it's fan fiction? And how do you try to make sure that you disassociate being a fan from doing the work professionally? Is that possible?
Every drawing I get to do, like, it's taken me 20 years to reach a point where the Dredd that I draw is a Dredd I can look at it and go, that's a pretty good Dredd. I actually like that Dredd as a fan. It's taken 20 years to get to that stage. But I mean, and that's just Dredd himself, and everything else I'm still working on. I'm still trying to bring it up to the scale I want it to be. I don't think there's anything wrong with being a fan and writing for the stuff you've got. I think what you've got to do is set your sights higher and not allow that to trip you up, and not allow that to stop you from doing something different or doing something that it doesn't tie your feet to the ground. Like, so when I started drawing Dredd, I made a very deliberate choice. Because my art style, I think the closest other artist that you can look at and think, well, that's a person that's influenced PJ's art, might be Steve Dillon's art. There's a lot of Steve Dillon's DNA in my art. There's maybe a lot of John McCrae's DNA in my art as well. But apart from that, it's maybe harder to reach grasp where it's coming from. But it's people like Joe Colquhoun and a lot of the British war artists. But the thing is, I didn't want to draw a Dredd that was a Steve Dillon Dredd. I wanted to draw a Dredd that was my Dredd, and the only way I could find that was by deliberately exaggerating certain features and doing things that were maybe not what I would even like. Let's try with a shaped helmet that's this way, or let's try this kind of thing, and let's try that, and trying to find that your own voice. So I don't think there's anything wrong with being a fan and doing this stuff. I think the problem is always sometimes, I mean, people talk about fan service and stuff. I think I mean, it's maybe a more of a pothole for a writer to avoid than an artist, but I absolutely am drawn for fan service. I'm drawn to, I want someone to open up a page and go, oh, that's a cool Dredd moment. I mean, I used to, my focus was on storytelling, and it was, how can I tell a story and I don't care about cool shots. I don't want to make this look cool. I want to tell a story. But now I've reached the point where it's like, I can do storytelling. I can do that. That's not a problem. What I want to do now is make someone gasp when they see this bit, and I want them to, and these are, so what made me gasp? And it's like, well, what are the fan things? What are the you want that big hero shot of Dredd as a fan, and as an artist, you want to draw that hero shot. So for me, it's not really. I don't think it stops me. But then I've been doing it for long enough, and I've been a fan long enough that it's hard for me now to kind of disentangle those things away from who I am as a person.
Yeah, there is a thing. I mean, we can write Dredd, and myself and Maura and the other writers, we can write characters that we love. And maybe there is a problem that we get a bit fanny at times. Can I say that online? I'm not sure. But what's important with the history of Dredd in particular is that if you're very familiar with the older stuff, we know what Judge Dredd is like when it's written by someone who clearly isn't a fan. And I'm not going to name names, but there were some writers who they didn't seem to actually enjoy Dredd. They kind of were writing.
Well, I know Garth Ennis, for example, has gone on record as saying that his problem was he was too much of a fan of Dredd. And
I know, I'm not talking about Garth.
But yeah.
But I mean, it can be probably, it isn't always work to be a fan. But I mean, I certainly consider myself to be a fan, and I get a great buzz from reading Dredds that I haven't written, and sometimes from reading the ones I have written. But it isn't necessarily something about. But if you are slavish to the thing, if you think, well, I'm a fan, I can't take the character in this direction or that direction, I can't change things. That means you're basically hamstringing yourself. You've got to be able to bring something new to the table. Otherwise, well, why would you even try?
Yeah, I think the danger as a fan is you might go, I want to do City of the Damned, and then you do City of the Damned. Well, it's already been done. It's been done better. So you've got to come at it. Well, I want to do something that approaches some of the feelings I got reading City of the Damned. I want that moment where Dredd stands with it, with his eyes poked out, and he looks at the vampires coming towards him. He goes, "You know who I am. You know how many are going to survive this encounter." I want to do that moment, but I can't do that exact moment. I've got to do something else. So so that's the danger, and that's where you kind of, I mean, as a fan and you're doing fan stuff, you can get away with I'm just going to do a bit of City of the Damned. Why not? But when you're writing this stuff for readers to consume, you can't just go over the old ground. It's it's all there and it's a little too easy, but it's also they want those feelings, but they don't want to see the exact same story again.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mike, you got a chance to rehabilitate the Irish judges.
Oh yeah.
Oh, did they all go to rehab? I haven't kept up.
We kind of did. Yeah. The original Irish judges appeared in the Emerald Isle story back in the whatever it was the 90s, written by Gareth and drawn by Steve Dillon. And I did not like a lot of the aspects. I didn't like the fact that the Irish judges were all drunks. Now, as someone who doesn't drink, I do take some exception to the idea that the Irish people are only drunks and we have no other aspect to our personality. I hate that. But yeah, so I did.
Some of them talk a lot, Mike.
Pardon?
Some of them talk a lot as well.
Yeah, I've heard that. Haven't heard anything else because all I could hear is that. But I realized, of course, that if I was going to do the Irish judges, that since Dredd's world ages in real time, why wouldn't I move it along? So their system it changed a little. I introduced my version of Judge Joyce, who's the son of Charlie Joyce from Garth's story, and mine is it was an Irish judge who comes out to Mega City 1 after the Chaos Day when Mega City 1 is very short of judges, and he's established himself now as a very solid Mega City 1 judge, though he hasn't appeared in quite a while. I'm not saying if there's a reason.
You have to do something about that, Mike.
Maybe I am. I will. Or maybe I will.
And what about yourself, Maura? Do you find that it's difficult to separate the two, or do you find like PJ they interwork with each other, being a fan and writing professionally?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a kind of interesting dilemma, because I think you have to respect, well, one of the main things for me is that if I'm working in someone else's sandbox, let's just say, and I've got all the toys, then you have to have real respect for what you're doing. You have to, so I do a lot of research, way more than I usually need to do on a story. But the number one thing is this: it has to be an entertaining story, or certainly that's what I aim for. And so that's what I want, because I think about what do I want in a story and what do I want to tell and what can be done within what is a massive universe of so many stories. I mean, other than Tharg and Mike, I'm not sure if everyone knows all the stories that have happened. There's probably some fans as well. So yeah, I mean, I trust Tharg to tell me, or Matt, to tell me if I inadvertently trip over something. But actually, because we pitch things to Mike, we pitch things to Matt, he would normally just say to you, oh, that's been done in such and such a thing. Yeah, so that's super handy actually. But yeah, I'm a fan of it, but also I believe in pushing. I believe in trying new things. I also look at the end game, and there is potentially an end game in some ways. And I think, well, what's going on? And I think the fact that judges are aging is very interesting. I think. So I think about that. I think about their age, they are now, and all that has happened to them up to now. And that's a kind of, I always think that's a sort of gravity that's pushing them down as they go along. I mean, terrible, terrible things happen in Mega City 1, and these judges have seen it, like all of it. Yeah, so I mean, those are things I think about. So actually, a lot of the time, I'm thinking about the I don't want to say the emotion, but like whenever I write a story, there's like a resonance in the story that I'm trying to tune into. And once I get that, snap into that, then I'm usually fine. Sorry, the sun's blazing in my window at the moment, so I'm totally whiting out here. But so yeah, and I really like trying to figure out what's the core of a character like Dredd or Anderson. Dredd is a character I would like to write in the comic. I may be doing something with them, but we'll see. Not in the comic. So yeah, they're yeah.
Speaking of pushing boundaries, speaking of pushing boundaries and trying new things, I was very surprised to see that Rebellion had okayed a musical coming out of the magazine. Dan Abnett wrote and composed Lawless the Musical, which you could listen to along on SoundCloud as you read the story in the magazine.
Yeah.
Did you guys listen to it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Were you annoyed you didn't get there first?
I didn't listen to it. I don't have SoundCloud, so I one day I must sign up for that. But yeah, I mean, I read the episode. It's great because it's Lawless and it's Dan.
Oh yeah, he's
brilliant art by Phil Winslade.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a great idea. But you see, wasn't the first 2000 AD musical. You know, it just was the worst one that had actual music. But Robo Hunter did it years ago. But they did the old songs to the tune of things. And of course, I did it when I was writing Sprout columns. But yeah, it was very clever. But then Dan is a brilliant writer.
He is.
He's probably nearly as good as some of us, you know?
Well, you know, I
more prolific than any of us. That's
well, we were very lucky to have him come along to Octocon, and it was an absolute joy to be able to do a panel and have Mike sitting on one side of me and Dan sitting on the other side. It was great.
If they'd started singing, that would have been impressive, though. Yeah, there's a deep history of 2000 AD in musicals, so it's not. I mean, in one sense, it's more surprising that we haven't really had musical episodes in total before. But Sam Slade's, you know, slightly, well, not slightly, very racially worrying strips in the past. But there have been musical strips in there. It's just, I think, with lockdown being on, and having that a musician to hand meant that they could actually record some of these things where they wouldn't normally have done so. So. So yeah, I mean, given the right material, I mean, anything can be a musical in 2000 AD. Dredd has touched on musicals before. I distinctly remember, and it might not have been a musical, but it was Satan was captured by Dredd in the one of the Christmas annuals, I think, and it was all done in rhyme I think it might have been a musical as well, you know, or you know, no music, but like little musical graphics and stuff. So there have been, and just given the right material, and whether the audience will wear it now is the bigger problem. So
I think musicals are always really popular, actually, adaptations. And funny enough, it does tell you, actually. I mean, Megacity won the musical. But I mean, there is the TV series is in development, so maybe they'll do a musical number.
Many's a time I've read 2000 AD while watching Doris Day in a musical on telly and when in my teens. So I'm all for more musicals in 2000 AD.
I'm a big fan.
So Mike, you had a story come out in the magazine that was drawn by Carlos Aguirre. So how did that feel?
That was probably one of the highlights of my career, and I'm sure one of the highlights of Carlos's career as well. Yeah, no, I was a fan of his from way before 2000 AD. Even he used to do covers occasionally for DC Thompson comics, and he did work on Battle, obviously, and things like that, and Action. And I absolutely worship that guy. He would be my number one favorite comic artist. I'm sorry, PJ.
That's fine.
No.
I don't even think I'm in your top 10, Mike, but that's okay.
Oh.
I'm sorry to all my other favorite artists, my friends, like John Higgins, for example, one of my closest pals. But no, Carlos was.
I'm not even in my own top 10, so nobody feels bad about it.
You'd certainly be in my top 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Is it any wonder I play up when we're on panels together?
Sorry?
Is it any wonder I play up when we're on panels together?
This is you playing up. Oh my God.
That's only because PG hasn't met me in person yet.
Yeah. Oh, really? We have to rectify that.
So Maura, you've written for Misty.
Yeah.
So how was that? And we don't tend to see in the Dredd universe or the 2000 universe kind of school stories. Do you think that's something that should cross over? And how was writing for Misty?
Well, again, when I got that job, I was very, very, very happy. And there was a couple of friends of mine, women friends of mine, that I told, and they were like extremely excited, more maybe than I was about the job. And it's funny, when I was asked about it, I had an idea, like, and Mike would know this, is like you always have this little bag of ideas in your brain. And I'd had this idea for years and years, actually. And so when it came up, I pitched it straight away, and it was taken straight away. And then I wrote it, and it's a Victorian horror monster story. And if you look at the Misty comics, one of the cool things about it was there was always stuff from lots of different time periods, and that's one of the things I liked about it. So I thought it would give a nice variety to do that. And I wanted to do something that was horrible in a way, not necessarily with lots of gore. And the other thing is that I knew it was supposedly, Misty, not the Scream start part perhaps, is aimed at a younger audience. And I thought about that rather than aiming it at an older audience, and I think that's something to think about with comics. Not that I'm saying I'm dumbing it down, because I hated that as a kid.
I actually think when you're writing for a younger audience, you've got to smarten it up. I think it's very easy to write for adults because you go, hey, I know what people my age like, let's go. And then you're writing for kids as well. What are they after? How can I tell a story, make an emotional connection to these readers, and do all of that and tell a story that they are going to be entertained by when there's a million other things for them to be entertained by. It's a harder gig.
Yeah. So it's like you have to keep that in mind with those things, like the specials that they have been bringing out. Rebellion are
like
all
these ones.
Yeah.
The all ages takeover.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm in that.
Oh, very good. I mean, yeah, a lot of the specials are supposedly aimed at a younger audience, and I think you do need to keep that in mind. And I'm not saying, actually, one of the things I love about the Dreadverse is the lingo in the Dreadverse, and it was, obviously set up to allow them to curse without cursing, and I actually adore stuff like that. That to use the paraphernalia and the stuff within the universe properly. But yeah, so writing for Misty was great, and so it's horror, it's comics that's aimed at girls, and that is a particular. I loved that stuff when I was a girl. I was a horror fan as a girl, even though people found that very strange. Not so much now, but certainly when I was growing up, it was considered very strange. So.
And of course, Mike, 2000 AD is not just the mega cities and Judge Dredd. There's a lot more to it than that. You wrote a wolf story.
I did, yeah. Wolf Sternhammer, who's named after one of my cats. No, wait, is it right around? Yeah, I did. I was very lucky. I got to write Wolf Sternhammer, and I wrote a Johnny Alpha story as well, and one of the regened issues, and something else is coming up, but I can't talk about it. But it's writing Wolf was brilliant because Wolf was always one of my heroes, and it was nice to tell a tale of his that had never been told. Plus, of course, because it's in 2000 AD, it's a canon story that's real now. That's going back to the fan fiction idea, is that we have to be careful that everything we put in the stories becomes real. There's no undos and retcons in 2000 AD. Well, very few. Certainly with Dredd's universe there isn't. Starting to was a little bit, but yeah, I did write a wolf story, and hopefully I get a chance to do another. But I can't say more than that. But yeah.
Mike, are there any non-Dredd, non-Megaverse that you would love to write?
Yeah, Maura asked me this back in our last panel. Yeah, I'd love to do something like Dan Dare. I'd love to go back to 2000 AD's version of Dan Dare. It would, because I love that story. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I thought it was great. And it was very different to the old Dan Dare, but that was why I loved it. I'd love to do that. Yeah, that's just one of many.
So for those who don't know, Rebellion took the time to put together the Judge Dredd case files, and they, in chronological order, produced the entire work, which is amazing, because 2000 AD has been running continuously. The stories don't reboot and recycle; they're always moving forward. And what's also really interesting about 2000 AD is it is not just one story in a comic. Every single issue is a collection of stories, which then run forward for several weeks, because a new issue comes out every week, a new prog. But the really interesting part is if you don't know where and when to get on board to start reading 2000 AD, they have special issues that come out, and they clearly say on them, this is a jumping on point. So all of the stories that are in these issues start at the very beginning. So inside this is the beginning of 4 to 6 stories, depending on how long they are.
4 to 6? Just... Yeah.
4 to 6. And this is episode. This is the new start is episode 2200, and moves forward. 2000 AD, as I said, for a lot of Irish people, it's been there. It's been what they grew up with. It's what's been available, and it's amazing that the three of you are a part of that. Thank you so much for joining me today. Unfortunately, we are going to have to wrap up. But the conversations that have been happening on our Discord channel, there is a Decade on the Tharg channel, and conversations are still continuing there. And the convention is still rolling on. After us, we have, sorry, I'm just checking my notes again. We've got Doctor Who, Regenerations fan chat happening on Discord, and we have a talk, Crohn's Inventors, the Women of the Golden Age comics, also happening on Discord. So I'd like again to thank PJ for joining us.
Thank you.
Maura for joining us.
Thank you.
And our wonderful guest of honour, Michael Carroll, for joining us.
Thank you very much. Honoured to be here.